Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. Mind your business. Only on Money FM 89.3.
Yes, it's time to mind your business on The Breakfast Show with me, Audrey Seek, and Ahmad Akhtar. And in light of SG60, we are spotlighting the leaders and businesses that have shaped Singapore's identity at home and abroad. And we are honored to sit down with one of the nation's most respected voices as we talk about a brand that has built hotels and a strong legacy. If you've ever stayed at a Banyan Group property, you'll know exactly what we mean. It all started in 1994 on a forgotten piece of land in Phuket. That was where an idea was born to create a luxury eco-resort rooted in sustainability, culture, and a sense of place.
Very well said. That idea became Banyan Tree, a name now synonymous with soulful hospitality across the globe. At the heart of that vision is a man whose journey is just as bold, a former journalist turned entrepreneur, a leader shaped by resilience and deep values. Ho Kwon Ping didn't just create a hotel brand, he pioneered a philosophy. So without further ado, let's welcome Banyan Group's founder and executive chairman to the show. KP, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thanks.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. You have lived truly a global life. You were born in Hong Kong, raised in Thailand, educated in Taiwan, the US, and finally find yourself back here in Singapore. So could you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up and how that upbringing shaped your worldview, especially in terms of business?
Well, I used to think when I was much younger that I was a completely confused kid. Not that I'm any less confused now. But, you know, the lack of a clear identity in a time when people all talk about identity politics and so on, it used to worry me quite a bit because, as you just mentioned, I was born in Hong Kong by accident, actually.
Oh.
Then I left Hong Kong before I was 1 year old and then moved to Thailand where I grew up as an outsider. Although Thailand has been my childhood home, I keep, much of our business is there. I speak the language and so on. But I was always an outsider, not being Thai. Then I went to Taiwan and to learn Chinese, and I was an outsider as an ethnic Chinese trying to learn Chinese. Then I went to Stanford during the height of the Vietnam War, got kicked out, went to jail, came back to Singapore, did my NS. And my NS actually was one of the more identity-forming periods of my life where I felt Singaporean for the first time, not ever having lived in Singapore at all for more than a day. So, overall my life has been a mishmash. And I used to think it was a real disadvantage, but I've now realized that being someone who came from such a multicultural background, actually, and without even knowing it, of course, and actually feeling a bit lost by it, has actually enabled, in my view, to be one of the reasons why Banyan Tree has been moderately successful everywhere in the world, from Cuba to Africa to the Middle East and so on. And that's largely because I'm such an outsider everywhere that no place really phases me. And that's a message that I try to tell young Singaporeans, that sometimes we're so comforted in this little cocoon of prosperous Singapore. We measure the world by what Singapore has or has not done. And we then become very uncomfortable outside this little cocoon. And that's one of the reasons why I think Singaporeans have to go out and see the world more, have to not measure the world according to what we think standards are like in Singapore. So, in short, what I thought was a real weakness on my part has turned out in a way to be what I think has partly been one of the reasons we've been moderately successful in so many different cultures.
Fantastic. Yeah, you just walked through a little bit of your life there, and what an amazing story.
Yeah.
You also talk about becoming a businessman being an accidental thing as well. And of course, now Banyan Group's story is now legendary, transforming a disused tin mine in Phuket to a world-class eco-resort. Can you take us back to the very beginning of this journey? What sparked this idea, and how did you know this was the right leap to take?
You want the PR answer or the real answer?
The real answer, please.
I mean, the PR answer, which all my colleagues in our Marcoms department would like to probably say, is that I've always known I was going to do this. I've always known Banyan Tree was going to be a successful. I've always known this and that. But the truth of it is, and I think if you talk to most entrepreneurs who are not honest about themselves, is that life is actually an accident most of the time. And for me, for sure, it was an accident. I was trained as an economist. My view on life still is very much by my view on economics. And then I became a journalist by accident. I became a political detainee by accident. I became a businessman by accident and became a hotelier by accident. And the actual story about Banyan Tree was because after a completely disastrous business venture with the family company, when I came back to join the family business, I actually wanted to resign from the company and told my dad I would resign. And he said, you can damn well do so after you make back all the money you've lost. So I was sort of nursing my wounds and went with my wife and my brother to Phuket, which was then a completely undiscovered place in the 1980s. Came across this massive piece of land. There were no drones, no title deeds, no photographs. So it looked kind of interesting because it was a moonscape, and we just for luck bought it for someone else to build. And it got bigger and bigger, and one story led to another. We started building some hotels there with not much money. And that's a story of Laguna Phuket. But the story of Banyan Tree started when we had the last piece of land at that time. Now it's a much bigger piece of land. But when we came to the last piece of land to develop, there was no beachfront. And so nobody wanted to manage the hotel. So that was when I had this eureka moment of, well, nobody wants to manage it. Why don't we manage it? That's how it started.
Yeah, a fascinating one. I would like to turn to an interview you did with the BBC way back in 2010, almost 15 years ago, where you talked about resilience being a key theme in your early life. You said it taught you a lesson. You should never try to be what you are not. What you have, whatever disadvantages you may have, is what you have, and you have to create something unique out of it. So my question, KP, is how has your approach to running a business evolved over these last 15 years or so? Does that quote encapsulate how you lead today in 2025?
I think so. I've always believed that whatever you are at any moment in time is the sum total of everything you've been before, even if you don't really know it and you can't sort of add up the little dotted lines, the little dots along the passage of the journey you've been taking. It is a culmination. At every moment, you are what you have been. And so, since the BBC interview, which your research department has been very good to be able to even discover, but since then, life has taken a lot of other turns. All I've learned is to simply be able to take advantage of every opportunity that comes, and when bad things happen, to simply take it in stride.
Yeah. So, looking back, you've talked about how your life and your business journey has been a series of, we can say happy accidents now. It probably didn't seem that way at the time, but, you've led Banyan Group through some incredibly tough times, right? We saw SARS, the Asian financial crisis, of course, COVID-19, some tsunamis as well. How do you personally approach crisis leadership? And what have those challenges taught you about resilience in business?
I think there's two levels of resilience. One is personal, and the other one is team resilience. I think the two are absolutely critical. The first one is personal resilience. I've actually gone through quite a bit in my life that are very different things, highly personal ones, like being in solitary detention for 2 months when I was 25 years old, and then other ones like in COVID when we had tens of thousands of associates around the world whom I'm responsible for, in which we had to have no business for 2 years. So I think one thing I've learned on the personal side of resilience is you just can't feel sorry for yourself. You just have to take stock of where you are at and either say, well, poor me, why not others? Why am I in such a situation? And so on. Or you just basically take a moment to, feel really bad and then get out of it and move on. So that's, I guess, my own take on resilience. And that is, I've had some very dark moments, and it's like, shutting yourself off in the toilet and screaming and crying your head out, and then opening the door of the toilet and getting out and then saying, that's it, I'm leaving that behind me, and I move on. So that's at the personal side. I think that's where I make a difference between being a leader and a manager. A manager is someone who really just organizes people to do things. And a leader is someone who actually can helps people aspire beyond themselves, aspire beyond their despair, their loneliness, their sense of desperation, and to help them to feel that they're in it together with you. I think that sentiment is very important. And it's not just a matter of doing the things that we did in COVID, which was to have financial assistance for the people that, we had to let go, and all the other measures you take in business or in politics or whatever. But I think beyond that, building team resilience is to let people know that you understand the pain that they are in, although that pain has to be borne, that you are with them, and that we will together go through this. And we've gone through quite a number of crises now, to the point where I think it is true that anything that doesn't kill you does make you stronger. And I think the resilience in Banyan Group today is very high. Even though we're not in one location, we're spread out across 25 different countries and so on. The spirit is high because we've been through so many bad things together. And now we are really in a very fortunate moment, and we're celebrating all this together.
Yeah, KP, you talked about aspiration, and I'm sure that helped you build a global appeal. You now have hotels all over the world. You alluded to weathering crises just then. A challenge you cited, going back to the BBC interview again, is that you believe it's difficult for Asian businesses to brand themselves overseas. You said that they're easily recognizable amongst Asian customers, but exporting that relationship to a global level is far more strenuous. Could you dive into that a little bit more?
Well, from the very beginning when we started Banyan Tree, I've wanted it to be a global company, not because of any ego or big aspirations, but because I've always felt that in a global business, which is what travel is all about, if you're going to actually survive, you have to be global. So going global wasn't us as a beating our chests and saying, this is a great thing we're going to do, and we're going to brag about it. Going global was, to me, an imperative for survival. We could be small but global, but if we're not, we have to be totally local. To be regional is pretty dangerous, in my view. So that's why we decided to go global. Now, in going global, one of the strongest values I've had, even as a backpacker back in my teenage days and so on, was that the world is beautiful because of its diversity. And the last thing I wanted to do in travel was to repeat Holiday Inn, where the main value of Holiday Inn is that wherever you wake up in the world, in the Holiday Inn, whether it's Lagos in Nigeria or Cuba, you're in the same Holiday Inn, like a McDonald's effect. And that's great for a country like America, where they export Americans all over the world, they export American culture all over the world, and so on. But my view was that our credo was about creating a sense of place wherever we are as a hotel, so that if you wake up in our Mexico hotel, you feel it's truly beautiful with a Mexican sensibility, but with a slight Asian sensitivity. So we wanted to do that, and it's not always easy to do, to export something which, as its very core, has the essence of Asian hospitality, Asian sensitivity, but yet is not something in your face. Like, for example, some of the Thai chains want to be so Thai that wherever you go in the world, they'll have their concierge do a Y, a Thai Y for you, which I think is kind of weird if you're in New York City and the concierge does a Y for you. And you want to enjoy the vibes of New York, and suddenly you think you're supposed to be welcomed into a Thai hotel in New York. That doesn't work for me. So that's why I've said we wanted to be global with a very strong sense of place. And then I do not think it's wise for Asian companies to be too overly conscious about being Asian. They need to be more global. Otherwise, we become like a Japanese company, which we all know are very insular and have too strong a Japanese sense.
Yeah. All right, KP, we're almost out of time, but we talked a lot about the global impact of Banyan Groups. So let's bring it home to Singapore and SG60. Of course, we want to start with the Mandai Rainforest Resort that just opened this year right within the Mandai Wildlife Reserve. Can you tell us what kind of experience you were hoping to create here? And, as we celebrate our 60th year, it's also a time for reflection. So what does this milestone mean to you personally?
The milestone is very meaningful for me because, we are a Singapore company, which we're very proud of, and we haven't had a hotel here. Not that we haven't had opportunities for it, but we wanted a hotel which we thought would be truly iconic in Singapore. And that had to be a hotel with a difference. So unless we had a hotel right in the middle of Marina Bay, which is not an easy place to get a hotel, or right along Orchard Road, etc., we've been skipping opportunities because they really weren't iconic. But now, I think the Mandai Wildlife Reserves is one of the biggest attractions in Singapore, even globally. It's an incredible location with additional parks that they have. And we're really proud to be able to partner with Mandai Reserves to have this really iconic hotel. We're proud of many aspects about it. It's one of the most green hotels in Singapore. It's access to the rest of the wildlife reserves, and after hours and pre-opening hours of the zoo is incredible. And families love to go there for staycations. And one thing I've just realized is we've had a few people who actually are at end of life periods. They've got a terminal illness. We've got about 3 or 4 of those people already who've asked to be able to come and stay with us, so that they can actually just go to the roof of the hotel during early morning or late night. And if you go there, you would find it's one of the most peaceful places in Singapore.
Wow.
Really, really contemplative. So in every way, it's been deeply moving for us to be able to do something there. And that is so different from a hotel anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, deeply moving and very meaningful. And of course, we were talking about SG60, but we understand that you're celebrating your birthday in just a couple of weeks. So a happy early birthday to you as well, KP.
Thank you very much.
And we want to thank you so much for sharing your journey and Banyan Group's journey with us this morning. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Yes, great chatting with you, and happy birthday as well from my side. Ho Kwon Ping is the founder and executive chairman of Banyan Group, and he's been speaking to us on Mind Your Business. Thank you so much for your time and insight. Stay with Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.